Hello, hello. Thank you once again, folks, for joining me. And in this episode, I want to speak about a particular AWS security service called Amazon Inspector. Once again, my name is John Kayode Abusi, and my job sits at the intersection of software and product security, engineering, and architecture. So, Amazon Inspector is an automated and continuous vulnerability management at scale. That is the tagline we have from Amazon. It's an automated vulnerability and exposure management tooling. Now, what does this mean? Like I always say, my job here is to introduce you to these security toolings, explain to you the general overview of what the capabilities are. The other thing is that what are those things to consider when you are bringing them to your production workload. Now, what is Amazon Inspector, generally speaking, is an automated, centralized vulnerability management service. It primarily continually to scan your AWS workload. Like in plain English, is a scanner that scans your AWS workload and maybe some other auxiliary workloads. Now, what does that mean? It means that it's looking for outdated libraries, unintended network exposure, like database port, like open port that is open to internet. It's scanning and looking for those things, continuously. Think of it as an automated security auditor that runs in the background of your cloud environment, checking your workload and alerting you when things become unsafe. So it's checking, it's scanning, checking your your AWS workload to say, okay, something is not right. So this is good. This is not right. Take a look at this. How does it work? Okay. So unlike other security tools, including Inspector Classic, that require you to manually schedule scan. So one thing about this is that there is no manual scheduling. Even most of our SaaS toolings or SCA toolings, you still have to manually schedule it, import the project or hook it up, whatever it is, and manually schedule it. But this doesn't require that. So it automatically, operates in two modes. One is what I call a automated and continuous discovery, and the other one is agentless and agent-based hybrid, configuration. Now, once enabled, it automatically discover all eligible resources. That is automated and continuous discovery. The other one, which is agentless and agent-based, for EC2 instance, it can gather information agentlessly by taking EBS volume snapshot or via the AWS system manager agent for containers or serverless function. So what this means here is that you don't need a manual scheduling for it to scan. It can scan, discover your workload, scan it, and report. The other area is that you can do agentless. That shows that you don't need to do any passing or what have you. It's just automatically. But agent-based, what it does is that it can take like a snapshot of your EBS volumes, or maybe use your AWS system managers to continuously, as for an information purpose, and continuously scan for container and your serverless workload. So, the inspector. Let's look at smart prioritization. It does a smart prioritization. That is another feature I want us to look at. Now, how does it do this? For instance, if it discovers that there is an outdated package, maybe within your EC2 instance, and that EC2 instance is logged down to a private subnet, Inspector we kind of deprioritize it. Maybe it will kind of make it look as if it's not a priority, or maybe something that is not of high severity. Yes, it will re-rate the severity, irrespective of what is being said in CV databases. It will re-rate it to tell you that based on the environment this particular configuration is right now, it's not something of concern because this particular workload is not exposed to the internet. It's locked down to private subnet. Now, exploit availability. Then the other thing is that if hackers have actively created an open source exploit script like Metasploit module for a specific vulnerability, inspector will raise the score because the real world threat is immediate. The other thing it does under this smart prioritization is that even if something look as if it's unharmful or might not be able to constitute a threat, but if you find out that there is an active vulnerability script or means of exploiting that vulnerability, it can re-risk it to a higher risk level. So these are the things that it delivers. So, like I said, what exactly does it scan? There's another thing I want us to look at. Because when you want to employ these services, actually you want to know what does it fit for the kind of workload environment, or maybe is it a good service that I can benefit from if I enable within my AWS environment. So number one, that it scans your EC2 instances, scan the operating system packages, application level dependencies, maybe your Python versions, your Node.js, your Java, everything that makes up of your EC2 workload, whatever is part of that. Then number two is your ECR, that is your Elastic Container Registry, and your CI/CD. So scan container images when they are pushed to the registry or continuously as they reside there. So it maps this vulnerability to your actual live footprint on EC2, ECS stack or EKS pod. Now, that is scanning your images, your container images, your EKS or ECR, environment. If there is any vulnerability, maybe something is misconfigured, maybe there is a package that is that's outdated, or maybe it's not properly maintained, gives you report. So that is that. Then your Lambda functions, scan serverless functions, code application layers for code security vulnerabilities such as injection, flaws, data leaks, and weak cryptography. For instance, if you are using maybe TLS version 1, it to kind of report it to you that, okay, this is a vulnerability. So code repositories integrate natively with developers' environment like GitHub and GitLab to perform software composition analysis. I mentioned SCA tooling the other time. So that shows that this particular this allows for for SCA workload, like it does the job of SCA for you. That's software component analysis. So yes, and scan infrastructure as code. It scans your does the job of your SCA and even scan your infrastructure as code templates, maybe like Terraforms or Tofu or CloudFormation or what have you. So the other thing it does is that it integrates and automates. It does the work of integration, automation and management. How does it do that? Now, AWS organization security team can assign a delegated administrator account to manage inspector across thousands of AWS accounts simultaneously with single click. So yes, so that shows that it integrates very well with your AWS organization. Then another thing is that software bill of material. It can automatically export a consolidated inventory of all software components, dependencies and packages across your cloud environment to S3 bucket in an industry standard format. For instance, if there is any reason why you need your SBOM, it can allow you to do that. Now we talk about downstream. Another capability is downstream. What does it do? Again, is downstream pipeline. Inspector doesn't fix bugs directly, but its output, its discoveries as findings, it automatically routed these findings to other AWS services. Like I mentioned before now, in our AWS Security Hub, I said one of the sources from which AWS Security Hub collects, aggregate and data is from Inspector, AWS Inspector. So you can see here that the information we have in Inspector, the discoveries, the findings are streamed to the Security Hub. Now, that is for single pane of glass, that's for visibility. The other thing is that it's also streamed, to the event bridge where a fix can be triggered. Maybe a particular package that is outdated or unpatched, event bridge can trigger an action, a workflow that will patch it up and do that. So if you want the output of inspector to be automated, to have a automated remediation, then that can be done with the help of a event bridge. So that is what I mean when I say that it's integration, automation, and management. So it can integrate with your AWS organization. It can allow you to, export your SBOM, and it can even, automate with the help of the event bridge to automate the response to those findings. So yeah, with this, I come to the, maybe I could, let me look at the production best practices. It's a centralized governance via organization policy. That shows that whatever is, we can deploy SCPs, through AWS organizations to make sure that we centralize governance, so which are like organized to automatically activate global scanning types, across all current and future member account. Now that allows that if inspector is have that capability of scanning all our AWS accounts and brings the report to a kind of single point of vein, to a central repository visibility pane, then we can also deploy policies that will guide, that will govern what got scanned, how it got scanned, and stuff like that. Automated lifecycle and state management. So build custom suppression rules via infrastructure as code. So now, for instance, like I said, you can build a custom suppression rule that says, okay, these particular findings, based on maybe severity, can be suppressed or not. So centralized software bill of material. Like I said, that shows you can have your software bill of material centralized in one place. And you have event-driven CI/CD security gateway. Now, integrate the Amazon Inspector scan engine directly into your developer environment, like your GitHub, your GitLab, or Jenkins. Configure pipeline policy to intercept container images, layer, or application code, or on commit, blocking container pushes to production if vulnerabilities are found there. So what am I saying is that another thing you can do in production with this tooling is to enable what gets your gated, pipeline, to enable gated pipeline. So if anything, if by peradventure, your environment is scanned and vulnerability is discovered, you can say, hey, block that pipeline from going to production. So so for this video, I've talked about like production best practices, and I've talked about the capabilities that you can get from Amazon Inspector, and I've talked about how it integrates with other toolings, and I've talked about the overview, the general kind of feel and function that it brings to the table. So once again, thank you for the enablement, for the productionizing it, and making it run in your environment. You have another hands-on video at the bottom of this video. Thank you.